Snow fell like broken promises over Frostfang territory. Elara Rowan stood at the border, barefoot in her thin nightdress, shivering as the cold bit into her skin. 7 years. 7 long years she had given to this pack, to this marriage, to a bond that was supposed to mean everything. The crowd of wolves circled her in the clearing, their eyes reflecting torchlight. She could smell their judgment, thick and sour in the winter air. Behind them, the pack house loomed dark against the mountains, every window blazing with warm light she would never see again. Ronan Drax, her husband, stood before her in his ceremonial robes. Once, she had loved the way firelight caught in his auburn hair. Now she couldn't bear to look at him. His voice carried across the silent gathering, cold and formal. Elara Rowan, by the laws of our ancestors and the will of this pack, I sever the bond between us. You have failed in your duty as Luna. 7 winters have passed without an heir. The bloodline weakens. The pack suffers. Elara's knees buckled. The bond between them, already thin and frayed from years of disappointment, began to snap. It felt like ice cracking inside her chest, like roots being torn from frozen ground. You are Barren, Ronan continued, and the word landed like a physical blow. I reject you as my mate. I reject you as Luna of Frostfang. Leave this territory before dawn, and do not return. The pain hit her all at once. The bond breaking was agony, a white-hot fire that raced through her veins and left ash in its wake. She collapsed into the snow, gasping, her fingers digging into the frozen earth. Around her, wolves whispered. She heard every word. Finally, she was useless anyway. 7 years wasted on damaged goods. Poor Alpha, bound to an empty Omega all this time. Elara wanted to scream that she had tried. She had drunk every bitter tea the healers prepared. She had prayed under every full moon. She had endured the pitying looks, the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered a room. The way Ronan's touch had turned from tender to obligatory to absent, but her voice had died somewhere between her heart and her throat. Elder Moira stepped forward, her ancient face twisted with disgust. The carriage waits beyond the border. Take only what you carry. Everything else belongs to Frostfang. Elara pushed herself up on trembling legs. Her bare feet were already numb. She clutched the small satchel they had allowed her a single change of clothes, nothing more. The walk to the border felt endless. Every step crunched in the snow. Every breath burned in her lungs. The pack members parted as she passed, none meeting her eyes. These wolves had once called her Luna, had once bowed when she entered a room. Now they turned away like she carried a plague. At the border, marked by ancient stones carved with pack symbols, Elara stopped. She looked back once. Ronan stood at the front of the crowd, his face unreadable. For a moment, just a moment, she thought she saw regret flicker in his eyes. Then he turned and walked back toward the warmth of the pack house, and the crowd followed. Elara stood alone in the snow. She had failed. She was broken. She was nothing. The wind picked up, howling through the trees like wolves crying for blood. She took one step past the border stones, then another. With each step, the bond's remnants faded, until there was only emptiness where Ronan's presence had lived for 7 years. She didn't know how long she walked. Time became meaningless. Her feet left bloody prints in the snow. Her nightdress offered no protection against the wind. She thought maybe she would just keep walking until the cold took her, until she became another frozen thing lost in the wilderness. Then she heard hoofbeats. A carriage appeared through the snow, black and elegant, pulled by 2 massive horses. It slowed beside her, and the door swung open. Elara, Kaya Rowan leaned out, her wild dark hair whipping in the wind. Kaya, who had been her only real friend in Frostfang. Kaya, who was technically Ronan's cousin but had never treated Elara like she was less than whole. Get in, Kaya demanded, her voice fierce. Right now. I can't, Elara whispered. I have nowhere to go. You have everywhere to go. The world doesn't end at Frostfang's border. Kaya reached out her hand. Get in, Elara. They don't get to finish your story. Something in Kaya's blazing eyes pierced through Elara's fog of grief. She reached up, took Kaya's hand, and let herself be pulled into the warm interior of the carriage. The door closed. The driver cracked the reins. They began to move. Elara sat wrapped in the fur blanket Kaya threw over her shoulders, watching Frostfang territory disappear into the swirling snow. She should feel relieved. She should feel free. Instead, she felt hollow. Where are we going? She asked quietly. Kaya's smile was sharp and full of secrets. Moonspire Palace, my brother's court. Elara's head snapped up. Cassian Rook? The Alpha King? The very same. Kaya settled back against the plush seat. He owes me a favor, and I'm calling it in. You need a place to heal. Moonspire is the furthest thing from Frostfang in every way that matters. Kaya, I can't impose on the Alpha King. I'm nothing. I'm just a rejected Omega, with no pack, no family, no... You are Elara Rowan, Kaya interrupted firmly. And you are done letting other people tell you what you're worth. The carriage rolled through the night, leaving Frostfang and its whispers far behind. Elara pressed her forehead against the cold window, watching unfamiliar forests pass in the darkness. She didn't notice when they crossed into Moonspire territory. She didn't notice when the mountains changed shape, becoming taller and sharper against the sky. She only noticed when the carriage began to slow, and Kaya touched her shoulder. Look, Kaya said softly. Look up. Elara lifted her head. Moonspire Palace rose before them like something out of a dream. Black stone towers reached toward the stars, each one crowned with silver banners that snapped in the wind. Braziers burned with cold white fire along the walls. Everything gleamed under the full moon, beautiful and fierce and impossible. The carriage rolled through the main gates. Guards in silver armor watched them pass, their eyes sharp and assessing. Elara shrank into her blanket, feeling small and damaged in this place of strength. They stopped in a courtyard paved with dark stone. Kaya helped her out, steadying her when she stumbled on still numb feet. Come on, Kaya said gently. Let's get you inside. But Elara had frozen, her eyes drawn upward. On the highest balcony of the tallest tower, a figure stood alone. Tall and broad-shouldered, wrapped in a long dark cloak that moved in the wind like living shadows. She couldn't see his face from this distance, but she felt his gaze like a physical touch. He was watching her. Cassian Rook, Alpha King of the Northern Pax, ruler of Moonspire and all the Barren wilds, stood perfectly still on his balcony and stared down at the broken Omega who had just entered his territory. Something in Elara's chest tightened. Her wolf stirred for the first time since the rejection, lifting its head with cautious interest. The Alpha King tilted his head slightly, studying her like a puzzle he intended to solve. Then he turned and disappeared back into his tower. Elara stood in the courtyard, snow melting in her hair, and felt the strangest sensation wash over her. Not fear, not shame, something else entirely. Something that felt almost like recognition. Hey, quick question. How are you feeling today? Thank you so much for being here. It really means the world to me. If Elara and Cassian's story is already pulling at your heart, please hit that subscribe button for Ariel Romance Library, smash the like, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. It helps more than you know. Alright, thank you. Now let's get back to what happens when the rejected Omega branded as Barren becomes the Alpha King's fated mate and mother of 5 impossible sons. Morning came too bright and too warm. Elara woke in a guest chamber larger than the entire bedroom she had shared with Ronan. Silk curtains filtered golden sunlight. The bed beneath her was impossibly soft. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back, and she curled into herself under the blankets. A knock at the door made her flinch. "It's me," Kaya called. "I'm coming in whether you're decent or not." The door opened, and Kaya swept in carrying a breakfast tray. She wore training leathers, her hair tied back, looking every inch the warrior she was. "Eat," she commanded, setting the tray on the bed. "Then we're going to show you around." No arguments. Elara picked at the food: fresh bread, honey, fruit she didn't recognize. Her stomach was still knotted, but Kaya's expectant stare forced her to take a few bites. "The nobles are already gossiping," Kaya said casually, settling into a chair. "Poor rejected Omega, taken in out of pity, probably won't last a week." Elara's fingers tightened on her cup. "Maybe they're right. Maybe they can choke on their expensive wine." Kaya's grin was wicked. "Let them talk. My brother doesn't care about gossip, and neither should you." "Your brother." Elara set down her cup carefully. "I haven't properly thanked him for allowing me into his home." "Oh, Cassian doesn't do anything out of simple kindness. If you're here, it's because he wants you here." Kaya stood, pulling Elara to her feet. "Now come on. I have orders to give you a tour before the morning council meeting." The palace was overwhelming. Corridors stretched in every direction, each one lined with tapestries depicting ancient battles and legendary wolves. Servants moved with quiet efficiency, nodding respectfully as they passed. Guards stood at attention, their silver armor gleaming. Everything spoke of power, control, tradition. Frostfang had been comfortable, lived in. Moonspire was a monument. Kaya led her through training yards where wolves sparred in both human and shifted forms, through gardens still beautiful despite winter's grip, ice sculptures replacing summer flowers, through libraries filled with books older than most pack histories. The court meets at midday, Kaya explained as they walked. Cassian handles territory disputes, resource allocation, all the boring political necessities. You're not expected to attend, but you're welcome if you want to see how a real alpha runs his pack. Alara almost smiled at the subtle insult to Ronan. They rounded a corner, and Alara stopped short. The Alpha King stood at the end of the corridor, speaking with an older man in healer's robes. In daylight, Cassian Rook was even more imposing than his shadow had suggested. Tall and powerfully built, with black hair that fell just past his shoulders and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore simple, dark clothes, no crown or ceremonial robes, but authority radiated from him like heat from a fire. He looked up as they approached. Those storm-gray eyes found Alara and held her frozen in place. "Your Majesty," Kaya said cheerfully. "May I present Alara Rowan, my friend and your newest guest." Cassian's gaze didn't waver from Alara's face. Up close, she could see the sharp intelligence in his eyes, the way he studied her with the same intensity he had shown from the balcony. "Miss Rowan." His voice was deep, controlled. "Welcome to Moonspire." Alara managed a small curtsy, her heart pounding. "Thank you for your hospitality. Your Majesty, I'm grateful for your kindness." Cassian is fine within these walls. He turned to the man beside him. "Era, this is the guest I mentioned. Would you ensure she has everything necessary for her recovery?" The healer, Era Thorne, smiled warmly at Alara. "Of course. Miss Rowan, please visit the healing wing when you have a moment. I'd like to make certain you suffered no lasting harm from your journey." Before Alara could respond, the floor beneath her feet turned treacherous. Ice from the courtyard tracked in on someone's boots. She stumbled. Cassian moved. One moment he was 3 feet away. The next his hand was around her waist, steadying her with effortless strength. His other hand caught her elbow, holding her upright. The touch sent shock through Alara's entire body. Her wolf woke fully, suddenly alert, pressing forward with an intensity that made her gasp. Cassian's nostrils flared. His eyes darkened, pupils expanding. For 3 heartbeats, they stood frozen. His hand warmed through the thin fabric of her borrowed dress, her skin burning where he touched her, the air between them charged with something electric and dangerous. Then Cassian released her, stepping back smoothly. "Careful," he said, his voice rough. "The floors can be slippery." "Thank you," Alara whispered, her face hot. Cassian nodded once to Kaya, then walked away down the corridor, his movements controlled but somehow tense. Era watched him go with an odd expression. Then she turned to Alara with gentle eyes. "Come find me later, dear. I think we should talk." When they were alone again, Kaya grabbed Alara's arm. "Did you feel that?" "Feel what?" "Don't play innocent." The entire corridor felt that. "Whatever just happened between you two? It was not normal." Alara shook her head, heart still racing. "Nothing happened. He kept me from falling. That's all." But Kaya's knowing smile suggested she didn't believe that for a second. The rest of the day passed in a blur. Alara met more palace staff, learned the layout of the residential wing, received a wardrobe of clothes that fit properly for the first time in years. Everyone treated her with distant politeness, neither warm nor cruel. It was such a change from Frostfang's whispers that she didn't know how to process it. That evening, Kaya dragged her to dinner in one of the smaller dining halls. A handful of nobles sat around the table, conversation flowing easily. Alara sat quietly, trying to be invisible, until Lady Morgaine, a sharp-featured wolf with cruel eyes, spoke across the table. "So, you're the Baron Omega from Frostfang. How tragic. 7 years without producing a single pup. Your former mate must have been a patient man." Silence fell like a blade. Alara stared at her plate, shame burning in her throat. Before she could respond, Kaya's fork hit her plate with a sharp clang. "Morgaine, you're wearing your ignorance like perfume tonight." Kaya's voice dripped ice. "Did you know the Frostfang bloodline carries a curse that prevents heirs? No? Then perhaps you should keep your expensive opinions to yourself." Lady Morgaine's face reddened. "I was merely stating facts. You were being cruel because you think it makes you interesting." Kaya leaned forward. "It doesn't. It makes you small." The table erupted in uncomfortable murmurs. Alara wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor and never face these people again. Then a door opened at the far end of the hall. Cassian entered, flanked by his advisor Eldon Grey. The room immediately quieted. The Alpha King's presence demanded attention without him saying a single word. His eyes found Alara first, sweeping over her face as if checking for damage. Then they landed on Lady Morgaine. "Morgaine," he said quietly, "you'll apologize to my guest, or you'll find yourself enjoying dinner in your own estates, permanently." Lady Morgaine's face went white. She stammered an apology that Alara barely heard over the roaring in her ears. Cassian didn't sit. He simply nodded once, gave Alara another long look, and left the same way he'd come. But the message was clear. Alara was under the Alpha King's protection. Later, unable to sleep, Alara found herself in Era's healing wing. The older woman welcomed her with tea and a comfortable chair by the fire. "I can feel you're troubled, child," Era said gently. "Tell me what weighs on you." And somehow, Alara found herself confessing everything. The 7 barren years, the healers at Frostfang who had examined her again and again, the final verdict that had sealed her fate. "They said I was infertile," Alara whispered, staring into her tea, "that something in me was broken, that I would never carry a child. And now I wonder if they were right, if I'm just empty." Era was quiet for a long moment. Then she set down her own cup and looked at Alara with eyes that seemed to see straight through to her soul. "May I examine you?" Alara nodded, surprised. Era's hands were cool and professional as she pressed fingers to Alara's wrist, her throat, her temples. She inhaled deeply, scenting the air around Alara, her eyes unfocused, as if seeing something beyond the physical. Then she sat back, her expression troubled. "You are not infertile, Alara Rowan. Your scent is clear, your energy unblocked. Whatever the Frostfang healers told you, they were either incompetent or lying." Alara's hands began to shake. "But I never conceived. 7 years. 7 years in a cursed bloodline." Era stood, moving to her shelves of ancient texts. "I've been researching since Cassian told me about you. The Drax line has been under a fertility curse for 3 generations. Any child conceived in that line withers before quickening. You were never the problem. You were protected from it." The room tilted. Alara gripped the arms of her chair. "I'm not broken? No, child." Era's smile was sad and knowing. "You never were." Alara left the healing wing in a daze. She wandered the palace corridors without seeing them, her mind reeling. Not broken, not barren, not empty. 7 years of shame, and she had never been the problem. She found herself on a small terrace overlooking the palace grounds. Snow was falling again, soft and silent. She pressed her hands against the cold stone railing and finally let herself cry. She didn't hear the footsteps behind her until a voice spoke, low and careful. "Era told me she spoke with you." Alara spun. Cassian stood in the terrace doorway, snowflakes catching in his dark hair. He didn't come closer, giving her space. "She had no right to break my confidence," Alara said, wiping at her tears. "She didn't. I asked if you were well. She said you would need time to process the truth." Cassian moved to the railing, keeping a respectful distance between them. "I'm sorry for what you endured at Frostfang." "Why do you care?" The question burst out before Alara could stop it. "I'm nobody. A rejected Omega with no pack, no family, no value to your court. Why does the Alpha King care what happens to me?" Cassian turned to look at her fully. In the moonlight, his eyes gleamed silver. "Because from the moment you stepped into my territory, my wolf hasn't stopped watching you. Because when I caught you from falling this morning, every instinct I possess screamed that I should never let you go." His voice dropped lower. "Because you are not nobody, Alara Rowan. You never were." Alara's breath caught in her throat. Cassian stepped closer. Close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell cedar and winter wind on his skin. "There's something I need to tell you," he said quietly. "Something about why I allowed you into Moonspire so readily." "What?" His jaw tightened. "I'm dying, Alara. Slowly, but inevitably. The same curse that touched Frostfang has its claws in me. If I die without a true-born heir, the northern packs will tear themselves apart fighting for dominance. Everything my family built will turn to blood and ash." Alara stared at him, horror replacing confusion. "Then find a mate. You're the Alpha King. Any Omega in the realm would." "I don't want any Omega." His eyes burned into hers. "I want you." The world stopped. Cassian reached out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and cupped her face in his hand. His thumb brushed across her cheekbone with devastating gentleness. "You deserve to know the truth before I ask what I'm about to ask. I need an heir, multiple heirs, strong sons to stabilize the succession. But more than that, more than politics or curses or kingdoms, I want you. My wolf recognized you the moment you arrived. If you tell me to let you go, I will. If you tell me you need time, I'll wait. But if you're willing to take a chance on something impossible, he leaned in, his breath warm against her ear. Marry me, Alara. Become my Luna. And in the next 5 winters, you'll give me 5 sons. Alara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The most powerful alpha in the north was asking her to be his mate, promising her the one thing she had been told was impossible. It had to be a cruel joke, but his eyes held no mockery, only certainty, dark and absolute. That's insane, she whispered. I can't have children. The healers were wrong. His other hand came up to frame her face. You were never barren. You were waiting. And I know, in my bones, in my blood, in every part of me that makes me what I am, that this is true. Marry me, and we will have sons. 5 winters, 5 sons. I've never been more certain of anything in my life. Alara trembled in his hands, caught between disbelief and desperate hope. Cassian's eyes searched hers, waiting. His jaw was tight with restraint. His body coiled like he was fighting every instinct to close the final distance between them. I don't understand, Alara breathed. Neither do I. But fate doesn't ask for understanding. It only asks if we're brave enough to answer. His thumb traced her lower lip, and she shivered. Are you brave, Alara Rowan? She should say no. She should run. She should protect herself from the inevitable heartbreak of hoping for something impossible. Instead, she heard herself whisper, "Ask me again tomorrow." Something fierce and triumphant flashed in Cassian's eyes. He leaned forward, and for one breathless moment, Alara thought he would kiss her. But he stopped, his forehead resting against hers, his breathing ragged. "Tomorrow," he agreed roughly, "and the day after, and every day until you believe me." Then he stepped back, released her, and walked away into the falling snow. Alara stood alone on the terrace, her face still warm from his touch, her heart hammering against her ribs. The Alpha King had just promised her 5 sons, and somewhere deep inside, in the place where her wolf lived, something whispered that he might be telling the truth. The next morning, Cassian didn't ask again. Instead, he began showing her. It started in the training yards, where Alara watched from a balcony as Cassian sparred with his warriors. She had meant to stay only a moment, but something about the way he moved kept her frozen in place. Power and grace combined, every strike deliberate, every defense calculated. He wasn't showing off. He was teaching, correcting stances, praising improvements. When he finished and looked up, finding her immediately among the watchers, his slight smile made her heart skip. By midday, she encountered him in the library. She had sought refuge among the books, trying to make sense of everything Era had told her. Cassian appeared between the shelves like he had been looking for her. "I thought you might like this section," he said, gesturing to a collection of texts on Omega Health and wolf biology. Better sources than whatever Frostfang's healers consulted. Alara ran her fingers over the spines. "You brought me here on purpose." "I did." "Why?" 2. Because you deserve actual knowledge instead of their lies. He pulled a volume from the shelf, handed it to her. "And because I wanted to see you." That afternoon, Kaya insisted on dragging both of them to a council meeting. "Stop hiding from each other," she said bluntly. "It's exhausting watching you two orbit like moons." The council chamber was impressive, with a long table carved from a single massive tree. Advisors and representatives from various territories filled the seats. Cassian sat at the head, Alara in a chair along the wall where observers sat. She watched him work, watched him navigate disputes with patience, make decisions with confidence, command respect without raising his voice. This was the Alpha King in his element, and it was breathtaking. Twice, during breaks in testimony, his eyes found hers across the room. Twice, she felt that same electric connection from the terrace. Dinner became a ritual. Kaya, Cassian, and Alara in one of the smaller dining rooms, away from the noble gossip. Kaya talked enough for all 3 of them, sharing outrageous stories about court politics. But beneath the humor, Alara felt something building. The way Cassian listened when she spoke, like her words mattered. The way he remembered small details she mentioned in passing. The way he never pushed, never demanded, just waited with infinite patience for her to come to him. On the 3rd night, after Kaya had excused herself with a knowing grin, Cassian walked Alara back to her chambers. "You haven't asked again," Alara said quietly as they moved through the lamplit corridors. "I told you I would wait. For how long? He stopped, turning to face her. As long as it takes. Years if necessary. I'm a patient man, Alara. But you're dying. His expression didn't change. Then I'll die waiting. I won't pressure you into something you're not ready for. Alara studied his face in the flickering light. No one had ever treated her like this. Like she had value beyond what her body could produce. Like her choice mattered more than their needs. You're not what I expected, she admitted. What did you expect? Someone cold, calculating. Someone who saw me as a means to an end. Cassian stepped closer, not touching her, but close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. I do need heirs, he said honestly. That's true. But I also need you to understand something. From the moment I saw you in that courtyard, broken and barefoot, and still standing, I knew. My wolf knew. You aren't a means to an end, Alara. You're the end itself. Everything else is just the path to you. Her breath hitched. That's impossible. So are 5 suns and 5 winters, and yet here we are. His hand lifted, hovering near her face, waiting for permission. May I? She nodded, barely breathing. His fingers brushed her cheek, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The touch was feather-light, reverent. You're beautiful, he murmured. But that's not why I want you. You're strong, resilient. You survived 7 years of cruelty, and came out of it still kind, still gentle, still hoping. That's what I see when I look at you. Alara's eyes burned with tears. I'm damaged. You're healing. His thumb traced her jaw. And I would be honored to be part of that healing, if you'll let me. She wanted to believe him, wanted it so desperately it hurt. Ask me again, she whispered. Cassian's eyes flared silver. His hand cupped her face fully, tilting it toward him. Marry me, Alara Rowan. Become my mate, my Luna, my queen. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that you were never broken, that you were always meant for something more than Frostfang's cruelty. His voice dropped to rough velvet. Marry me, and together we'll defy every curse, every prophecy, every voice that told you that you were less than enough. 5 winters, 5 suns, and a lifetime of me worshipping the ground you walk on. Alara trembled. Her wolf was singing, pressing forward, begging her to say yes. But fear held her back. Fear of hoping again. Fear of believing in miracles only to have them shatter. I can't promise you sons, she said, voice breaking. What if Ira is wrong? What if you marry me and I fail you the same way I failed? You didn't fail anyone. Cassian's other hand came up, framing her face. Ronan failed you. Frostfang failed you. But you survived, and that makes you stronger than any wolf who broke under less. But what if? Then we'll face it together. His forehead lowered to rest against hers. I'm not asking you to guarantee me heirs, Alara. I'm asking you to take a chance on us, on this pull between us that neither of us can deny, on the possibility that maybe, just maybe, fate is done being cruel to you. She closed her eyes, breathing him in. Cedar and winter wind and something uniquely him. I'm afraid, she confessed. So am I. His admission startled her eyes open. I'm afraid of losing you before I ever really have you. I'm afraid of this curse taking me before I can build something real with you. I'm afraid of 1,000 things, but I'm more afraid of letting fear win. Ilara's hands came up, settling on his chest. His heart thundered under her palm. One condition, she said. Anything. If I can't give you children, you don't cast me aside. You don't reject me the way. Her voice broke. Cassian's eyes blazed. If we're fated to have no children, then we'll have no children and I'll love you just the same. If we're blessed with 1 son or 5 or none, you will be my mate until my last breath. I swear it on my crown, on my life, on everything I am or will ever be. The sincerity in his voice shattered the last of her resistance. Then yes, Alara breathed. Yes, I'll marry you. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then Cassian's mouth descended on hers. The kiss was gentle at first, testing, asking permission with every movement. But when Alara's hands fisted in his shirt and pulled him closer, gentleness gave way to hunger. His mouth moved over hers with devastating skill, tasting, claiming, worshipping. His hands slid into her hair, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. She made a small sound of need, and his responding growl vibrated through both of them. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Cassian rested his forehead against hers. 5 winters, he murmured against her lips. 5 suns, you and me against the world. You're insane, she whispered back. Probably, He kissed her again, softer. "But I'm your insane now." Alara laughed, the sound bright and genuine and utterly unexpected. When had she last laughed like that? Cassian smiled, the expression transforming his usually serious face into something breathtaking. "I love that sound," he said. "I'm going to make you laugh every day for the rest of our lives." "That's a bold claim." "I'm the Alpha King. Bold claims are my specialty." She kissed him this time, rising on her toes to reach him, and felt his surprise transform into pleasure. When they finally pulled apart, Cassian looked at her like she was the answer to every question he had ever asked. "Tomorrow," he said, "I'll make the formal announcement. The court will expect a proper bonding ceremony within the month. But tonight, can I just hold you? No expectations, no pressure. I just want to feel you close." Alara nodded, unable to speak past the emotion in her throat. He gathered her into his arms, and they stood in the corridor, wrapped in each other, as the palace settled into sleep around them. For the first time in 7 years, Alara felt safe. For the first time in his life, Cassian felt complete. And somewhere in the old places beneath Moonspire, something ancient stirred and began to count. 1 winter down, 4 more to go. 3 weeks passed in a blur of preparation. The palace buzzed with activity as servants prepared for the formal bonding ceremony. Nobles from every territory sent gifts and congratulations. The seamstresses worked day and night on Alara's ceremonial gown. But the politics and pageantry felt distant to Alara. What mattered was the time she spent with Cassian, learning the rhythms of his life, discovering the man beneath the crown. He was nothing like Ronan. Where Ronan had been distant and formal, Cassian was present and engaged. Where Ronan had made her feel small, Cassian made her feel seen. Where Ronan had touched her like an obligation, Cassian touched her like she was precious. They hadn't shared a bed yet. Cassian insisted on waiting for the bonding ceremony, for her comfort and to quiet any whispers about propriety. But the tension between them built with every stolen kiss, every heated glance, every moment his hand lingered on her waist or his breath caught when she walked into a room. One evening, Kaya burst into Alara's chambers with wild excitement in her eyes. "Tonight is the moon run," she announced. "And you're coming." Alara looked up from the book she'd been pretending to read. "The what?" "It's tradition. Every full moon, the palace wolves run together through the Barren wilds. It's beautiful and primal, and exactly what you need." Kaya pulled her to her feet. "When's the last time you shifted?" Alara's stomach twisted. "Not since the rejection. I can't, my wolf won't." "Your wolf will." Kaya's expression softened. "Trust me. She's been waiting for you to feel safe enough to try." An hour later, Alara stood at the edge of the palace grounds with a group of wolves. Cassian was among them, already stripped down to just his pants, his muscled torso gleaming in the moonlight. He caught her eye and smiled. "You don't have to run if you're not ready." But something in Alara wanted to try, wanted to feel that freedom again. She moved to the edge of the group, to a private spot behind the trees where she could shift without an audience. Her hands shook as she removed her dress. Then she reached for her wolf. The shift came easier than expected. Pain laced through her bones, but it was good pain, welcome pain. Her wolf burst forward with a joyful howl, and suddenly Alara was standing on 4 legs, fur silver in the moonlight. She heard an answering howl and looked up. Cassian's wolf was massive, black as midnight with eyes that gleamed like molten silver. He was beautiful and terrifying and magnificent. He approached slowly, giving her space to bolt if she needed it. Then he pressed his massive head against her neck, scenting her, and rumbled with approval. Other wolves howled, and the run began. They streaked through the forest, a pack moving as one. Alara ran with them, her paws barely touching the ground, her heart soaring. Snow flew up around them. Wind rushed through their fur. The moon hung huge and bright above the trees. Cassian ran beside her, matching her pace, occasionally bumping his shoulder against hers in playful encouragement. When she stumbled on a hidden route, he was there instantly, steadying her. They ran for hours, deeper into the wilds than Alara had ever gone. When the other wolves began to peel away, heading back to the palace, Cassian nudged her in a different direction. He led her to a clearing at the top of a ridge. Below them, the entire valley spread out, covered in snow that glowed under the moon. The palace gleamed in the distance like a crown of silver fire. Cassian shifted first. He stood in the snow, naked and magnificent, steam rising from his skin in the cold air. His eyes were still more wolf than human, bright with the run's wildness. Alara shifted too. The cold hit her bare skin, but she barely felt it. Her body was still humming with energy from the run, blood singing, every nerve alive. Cassian turned to her, and whatever he saw in her face made his breath catch. Elara. She stepped closer. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. That was amazing. I forgot how good it feels to run, to be free. You were beautiful out there. His voice was rough. Your wolf is strong. Faster than I expected. I had good motivation to keep up. She took another step, closing the distance between them. Thank you for leading me here. I wanted to show you. He stopped when she pressed her palm flat against his chest, right over his heart. Heat radiated from his skin, delicious against her cold hand. I can feel your heartbeat, she whispered. Cassian stood absolutely still, like he was afraid any movement might shatter the moment. Elara, we should get back before you freeze. I'm not cold. She wasn't. Her whole body felt like it was on fire, heat coiling low in her belly, making her skin too tight. She recognized this feeling, need, want, desire, but this was different from anything she'd felt before. This wasn't obligation or duty. This was hunger, raw and real, demanding to be fed. You're trembling, Cassian said, his hands coming up to grip her shoulders. Let me warm you. I'm not trembling from cold. Elara looked up at him, letting him see everything she was feeling. I'm trembling because I want you. His eyes went fully silver. We should wait. The ceremony. I don't want to wait. Her hand slid up his chest to his shoulders. I want to be with you, not because tradition says I should or duty requires it, because I choose you. Right here, right now, I choose you. Something in Cassian snapped. He hauled her against him, one hand tangling in her hair, the other splaying across her lower back. His mouth descended on hers in a kiss that was all hunger and heat and desperate need. Elara moaned into his mouth, pressing closer, needing to feel every inch of him against her. Her hands explored the muscles of his back, his shoulders, the strong column of his neck. Cassian walked her backward until her back hit something solid, the terrace wall at the edge of the clearing. The stone was cold against her skin, making her gasp. Tell me to stop, Cassian growled against her throat. Tell me we should wait and I'll take you back right now. Don't stop, Elara breathed. Please don't stop. Don't let me go tonight. His control shattered completely. He lifted her, and her legs wrapped around his waist automatically. His mouth found hers again, kissing her like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. His hands roamed her body with reverent hunger, learning every curve, every sensitive spot that made her gasp. When his mouth moved to her throat, she tilted her head back, giving him access. His teeth grazed her skin, and she shuddered. I've wanted this, he murmured against her neck. Wanted you from the first moment I saw you. Do you know how hard it's been? Keeping my hands to myself? Then don't. Her fingers dug into his shoulders. Touch me, all of me, please. What followed was heat and need and connection so intense it bordered on overwhelming. Cassian touched her like she was sacred, like every gasp and moan was a prayer he wanted to memorize. He took his time despite the urgency thrumming between them, making sure she felt cherished, worshipped, wanted. When they finally came together, Elara's back against the stone, Cassian's arms holding her safe, it felt like the world realigned, like two broken pieces finding each other and becoming whole. He moved with controlled strength, watching her face, adjusting to her responses, making sure she felt pleasure before his own. When she shattered in his arms, crying out into the night, he followed moments later, burying his face in her neck and whispering her name like a benediction. They stayed locked together for long moments, breathing hard, hearts racing in sync. Snowflakes drifted down around them, melting on heated skin. Elara, Cassian finally said, his voice wrecked. That was perfect, she finished, kissing his jaw. That was perfect. He carefully lowered her to her feet, keeping his arms around her when her legs wobbled. His eyes were soft, filled with wonder and something that looked like awe. You're incredible, he said, cupping her face. And you're mine now, completely mine. And you're mine, she replied, placing her hand over his heart. I'm not afraid anymore. They shifted and ran back to the palace together, their wolves playful now, occasionally nipping at each other's heels. When they shifted back inside Cassian's chambers, he immediately wrapped her in warm blankets and pulled her close. They fell asleep tangled together, skin against skin, breathing in sync. Outside, the moon continued its journey across the sky, counting down the first winter. Neither of them noticed the way shadows gathered in the corners of the room, watching. Neither of them felt the pulse of ancient magic that rippled through the palace foundations. The curse had noticed, and it was interested. 3 weeks after the moon run, Alara collapsed during morning training. She had been sparring with Kaya, gentle practice, more about movement than combat when pain lanced through her spine. Her vision blurred. Her legs gave out. Kaya caught her before she hit the ground, shouting for help. Cassian appeared within minutes, having apparently run full speed from a council meeting. He gathered Alara into his arms, his face tight with worry. "I'm fine," Alara protested weakly. "Just dizzy." "You're not fine. You're pale as death." He carried her toward the healing wing. Era, the healer, met them at the door, took one look at Alara, and ushered them into a private examination room. "Set her down gently," Era instructed. "Then out, Your Majesty. I'm not leaving. Out, or you'll hover and make my job harder." Cassian reluctantly left, pacing the corridor outside like a caged wolf. Inside, Era's examination was thorough and gentle. She pressed fingers to Alara's pulse points, scented the air around her, placed her hands on Alara's abdomen. Then she went completely still. "What?" Alara asked, anxiety spiking. "What's wrong?" Ira's face transformed into a brilliant smile. "Nothing is wrong, child. Everything is perfectly impossibly right. I don't understand. Try to shift for me." Alara reached for her wolf. Pain immediately flared through her bones, and her wolf curled up instead of emerging. It wasn't painful so much as resistant, like her wolf was protecting something. "I can't," Alara whispered. "My wolf won't come forward." "Is something wrong with her?" "No. She's protecting your child." Time stopped. Alara stared at Era, certain she had misheard. "My what?" "You're pregnant, Alara." About 3 weeks along, by my estimate. The room tilted. Alara's hands flew to her stomach, pressing against the flat surface, as if she could feel something that wasn't there yet. "That's impossible. It's only been 3 weeks since the moon run." "I know." Era's eyes were knowing. Fated mates often conceive quickly. "And you and Cassian? Whatever magic ties you two together is stronger than anything I've seen in 50 years of healing." Tears spilled down Alara's cheeks. "Are you certain?" "Absolutely certain." Era squeezed her hand. "Congratulations, Luna. You're going to be a mother." Alara couldn't breathe, couldn't think. 7 years of emptiness, of shame, of believing she was broken. And now, after 3 weeks with Cassian, a life had taken root inside her. "Can I tell him?" she managed to ask. "Of course, though I suspect he already knows. Alpha wolves can sense these things." Alara stood on shaking legs and moved to the door. When she opened it, Cassian was right there, still pacing, his face taut with worry. Their eyes met. His nostrils flared, his pupils expanded, and then he dropped to his knees in the middle of the corridor. "Alara?" he breathed. She nodded, unable to speak. Cassian's hands reached out, hovering over her stomach, asking permission. When she nodded again, he pressed his palms flat against her abdomen and lowered his forehead to rest against her. A broken laugh escaped him, then another. Then he was laughing and crying at the same time, shaking against her while emotions crashed through their forming bond like storms. Awe, terror, fierce joy, overwhelming love. "A son," he whispered against her skin. "I can feel him. It's a son." Alara's fingers tangled in his hair. "You can't possibly know that yet." "I know." He looked up at her, and his eyes were blazing silver. "Just like I knew we would have 5. 1 winter down, Alara. 1 son on the way." She sank down to kneel with him, cupping his face. "You were right. You impossible, arrogant man. You were right." He kissed her, soft and reverent. "We were right. You and me, and fate." News of the pregnancy spread through the palace like wildfire. Within hours, the entire court knew. Within a day, neighboring territories were sending congratulations. And within a week, the message reached Frostfang. Cassian insisted on a formal announcement. Not out of spite, he claimed, but to make clear that Alara was under his protection and carrying his heir. Alara suspected spite played at least a small part. Representatives from various territories gathered in Moonspire's Great Hall for the announcement ceremony. Among them, looking uncomfortable and small, were 3 elders from Frostfang. Ronan hadn't come himself. Coward. Alara stood beside Cassian on the raised platform, wearing a gown of silver and midnight blue that made her look every inch a queen. Cassian's hand rested on the small of her back, a constant reminder that she wasn't alone. "We are gathered," Cassian announced, his voice carrying through the hall, "to share news of great joy. Luna Alara carries our first child. and heir to the Moonspire throne. The hall erupted in cheers, except for the Frostfang elders, who looked like they had swallowed glass. Elder Moira, who had once called Elara Barren in front of the entire Frostfang pack, stood frozen with shock. Cassian's smile was sharp as he continued. We know some doubted the Luna's ability to bear children. Those doubts have been proven false. The child quickened mere weeks after our bonding, confirming what we always knew. There was never anything wrong with our Luna. She simply needed the right mate. The words were diplomatic, but the meaning was clear. You were wrong. She was never broken. You broke her. Elara felt vindication surge through her, hot and fierce. She lifted her chin and met Elder Moira's gaze directly. The elder looked away first. After the ceremony, nobles lined up to offer congratulations. Most were genuine, some clearly calculated. Elara smiled and accepted their well wishes with grace, Cassian's solid presence beside her making it easier. But when the last guest departed and they were finally alone in their chambers, Elara's composure cracked. I'm terrified, she admitted, pressing her hands to her still flat stomach. What if something goes wrong? What if I lose the baby? Cassian pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her from behind and resting his chin on her shoulder. Nothing will go wrong. Era is the best healer in the north. Our entire pack will protect you. And I'll be with you every step of the way. He pressed a kiss to her temple. But it's okay to be scared. I'm scared too. You are. Terrified. I've faced armies and rival alphas without blinking, but the thought of something happening to you or our son, it freezes my blood. She leaned back against his chest, drawing strength from his solidity. We'll protect each other, always. His hand splayed over her stomach. The three of us against the world. The pregnancy progressed smoothly, but intensely. Elara's body changed rapidly, her belly rounding earlier than expected. Era said it was normal for alpha bloodlines. The children grew strong and fast. Cassian became fiercely protective. He rearranged his schedule to spend more time with her. He had cushions added to every chair she favored. He personally supervised her meals to ensure proper nutrition. At night, he talked to her belly, telling their son stories about pack history, about the North, about the mother who carried him. The first time the baby kicked in response to Cassian's voice, they both cried. The birth came during a blizzard, as if the world itself was heralding the arrival of Moonspire's heir. Elara labored through the night, Cassian refusing to leave her side despite tradition saying alphas should wait outside. He held her hand, wiped her forehead, breathed with her through each contraction. When dawn broke and the baby finally arrived, his first cry was strong and clear. A son, Era announced, placing the squalling infant in Elara's arms. A perfect, healthy son. Elara looked down at the tiny face, the dark hair already thick on his head, the eyes that would eventually turn silver like his father's. Hello, little one, she whispered. We've been waiting for you. Cassian sank down beside the bed, reaching out with trembling hands to touch his son's tiny fingers. When the baby gripped his finger with surprising strength, Cassian made a sound between a laugh and a sob. He's perfect, Cassian said, his voice rough. You're both perfect. They named him Aldrich, after Cassian's father. The palace celebrated for 3 days. Wolves from every territory sent gifts and pledges of loyalty. In Frostfang, when the news arrived, Ronan Drax stood alone in his study and felt his remaining power slip another notch. The Barren Omega had given the Alpha King a son, and somewhere in the ancient places, something that had been sleeping for generations opened both eyes and began to count. 1 son, 4 more to go. Time moved differently after Aldrich's birth. The palace settled into new rhythms, feeding schedules, lullabies sung in the royal chambers, a tiny prince who howled at the moon long before he could shift. Elara discovered motherhood suited her. She was patient and gentle, but also fierce when protecting her son. Watching her with Aldrich made Cassian fall deeper in love every day. 6 months after Aldrich's birth, Elara woke one morning and immediately ran to the bathing chamber. Cassian followed, holding her hair back while she was sick. When she finished, she looked up at him with wide eyes. Again, she whispered. He nodded, a slow smile spreading across his face. Again, the second pregnancy was different from the first. Elara was more confident, less afraid. Her body knew what to do. But the birth was harder, longer, and came during a security crisis. Raiders from the Eastern Territories had launched a coordinated attack on 3 border outposts. Cassian was in the war room, coordinating defenses, when a guard burst in. Your Majesty, the Luna's time has come. Cassian didn't hesitate. He turned command over to his second and ran. The second son, Kieran, was born while battle horns sounded in the distance. He came into the world screaming defiance, and Cassian arrived just in time to catch him. "He's a fighter," Cassian said, laughing through tears as he placed Kieran in Alara's arms. "Listen to those lungs." That night, after the raiders were repelled, and both mother and baby were resting, Cassian held both his sons while Alara slept. Aldrich curled against his chest, Kieran cradled in his other arm. 2 sons, 2 winters, right on schedule. The third winter brought complications. Alara conceived again, as predicted. But this pregnancy was different. She was constantly exhausted. Her wolf grew restless and aggressive. Strange dreams plagued her sleep, visions of ice and darkness and something watching from beneath frozen water. Era grew concerned. The pregnancies are taking a toll. Her body needs more time to recover between children, but fate had its own schedule. The third son arrived during the spring festival, 3 months early but somehow perfectly healthy. Finian was smaller than his brothers but fierce, with eyes that gleamed gold instead of silver. "He's different," Era said quietly, examining the baby. "There's something more in him, old magic." Cassian held Finian carefully, studying the tiny face. "What kind of magic? I don't know yet, but he's special, even among alpha heirs." That night, Alara woke to find Cassian sitting by the window, Finian in his arms, both of them silhouetted against the moon. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly, thinking. He didn't look away from their son. 3 sons in 3 winters. "It's happening exactly as I said it would. You sound troubled." "Not troubled, awed, terrified." He finally turned to her. "This kind of precision doesn't happen by chance. Fate is paying us too much attention, Alara. And fate always wants something in return." She came to sit beside him, leaning against his shoulder. "Then we'll face whatever comes together, like we always have." "Together," he agreed, kissing her temple. But outside, thunder rolled across a cloudless sky. The 4th winter was the hardest yet. Alara's 4th pregnancy nearly broke her. She was sick constantly, unable to shift at all, plagued by pain that even Era's strongest herbs couldn't fully ease. Cassian was terrified. He watched her grow thinner despite eating, watched her strength fade, watched the light dim in her eyes. "Maybe we should stop," he said one night, holding her while she cried from exhaustion. 4 sons is more than enough. I won't risk losing you for prophecy." "It's not up to us," Alara said wearily. "This child was already conceived before we could choose otherwise." "And I can feel him, Cassian. He needs to be born." The 4th son came 2 months early, during a violent storm that tore tiles from the palace roof and shattered windows. The labor lasted 3 days. Cassian stayed with Alara through all of it, holding her when she screamed, breathing with her when she couldn't catch her breath, refusing to leave even when exhaustion made him sway on his feet. When Lysander finally arrived, silent and still, Era worked frantically to make him breathe. The moment stretched into eternity, then a tiny gasp. A weak cry. Lysander lived, but he was fragile in a way his brothers had never been. He needed constant care, careful attention, specialized feeding. For months, it was uncertain if he would survive. Alara refused to leave his side. She held him constantly, nursed him through every difficulty, sang to him when he whimpered in pain, and slowly, miraculously, he grew stronger. By his 1st birthday, Lysander had caught up to his brothers in size and strength. The fragile infant became a robust toddler with his mother's gentle nature and his father's stubborn will. 4 sons, 4 winters. The palace was chaos and joy in equal measure. 4 princes tumbling through the halls, each with different temperaments and gifts. Aldrich, the eldest, serious and protective of his younger brothers. Kieran, the warrior, always ready to fight and wrestle. Finian, the strange one, who sometimes saw things others couldn't. Lysander, the gentle one, who could calm his brothers with a touch. Cassian ruled his kingdom while teaching his sons to do the same. Alara mothered and loved and somehow kept her sanity amid the beautiful chaos. But as the 4th winter melted into spring, both of them felt the weight of what was coming. 1 more winter, 1 more son, and then fate's bill would come due. Late one night, with all 4 boys finally asleep, Alara stood on their private terrace overlooking the Barren wilds. Cassian joined her, wrapping a fur around her shoulders. "You're thinking about the 5th, he said. "How can I not? 4 sons in 4 winters, exactly as you promised. It's been perfect, too perfect." She turned to face him. "What happens when we complete the pattern?" "I don't know," He pulled her close. But I know we'll face it together. I'm afraid, Cassian. Not of the pregnancy or the birth. I'm afraid of what comes after. What if the curse that let us have these children wants them back? His arms tightened around her. Nothing will take our sons. I'll fight every curse, every ancient magic, every god that thinks it has a claim. Our children are ours. Promise me, she whispered against his chest. Promise me that whatever happens, you'll protect them. I swear it. On my life, on my soul, on everything I am. He tilted her face up to his. And I swear I'll protect you too. All of you. My family. My heart. She kissed him, pouring every ounce of love and fear and hope into the touch. When they pulled apart, Cassian rested his forehead against hers. One more winter, he murmured, and then we'll know what fate wants. Neither of them noticed the way the stars flickered overhead. Neither of them saw the cracks spreading through the ice on the distant lake. Neither of them heard the whisper that rode the wind. Soon, the 5th winter arrived with omens. Birds flew south weeks earlier than normal. The northern lights danced every night, painting the sky in colors that had no names. Animals moved restlessly, gathering in unusual numbers near the palace walls. And Alara conceived again. She knew the moment it happened, felt the spark of life take root, felt her wolf curl protectively around it, felt fate's attention sharpen like a blade. This time, there was no joy in the discovery, only grim determination. The 5th son, she told Cassian quietly. He's here. Cassian's face was a mask of controlled emotion. How far along? Days. Maybe a week. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight enough to hurt. Whatever happens, we face it together. Together, she agreed. But privately, she wondered if together would be enough. The pregnancy progressed faster than any of the others. Alara's belly swelled in a matter of weeks. The baby moved constantly, restlessly, like he was trying to break free early. Era's examinations grew more concerned with each passing week. The child is growing too fast, she said during one visit. At this rate, he'll be born months early. And there's something else. What? Alara asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. He's drawing power. Not from you, exactly, but through you. I can feel it when I examine you. This child is connected to something old, something that's been waiting. Cassian appeared in the doorway, having obviously been listening. The curse, or whatever magic broke the curse to allow these pregnancies. Era set down her instruments. 5 suns in 5 winters isn't natural, it's intentional, and intention always has a purpose. That night, unable to sleep, Cassian went to his private library. The oldest texts were kept there, including prophecies and records that predated the current kingdom. Eldon Grey joined him, the old advisor's face grave. I've been researching since the 3rd son's birth, Eldon said, spreading ancient scrolls across the table. The pattern kept bothering me. 5 suns, 5 winters, born to a rejected Omega and a dying Alpha King. What did you find? An old prophecy. So old most scholars think it's myth. Eldon pointed to faded text. It speaks of a bloodline cursed to fail, and another blessed to complete. When the 2 lines join, 5 sons will be born to light a path through darkness. Light a path to what? In this verse of it, that's where it gets unclear. The next part is damaged, but there are fragments about an ancient debt, a sealed darkness, and a price paid in alpha blood. Cassian's jaw tightened. They want my sons, or they want you. Eldon met his eyes. The prophecy says the 5 sons will survive only if the father surrenders what he values most. My life, perhaps. Or your power. Or something else entirely. Eldon rolled up the scroll. Prophecies are rarely literal, but they're always cruel. Cassian returned to his chambers to find Alara awake, standing at the window with her hand pressed to her swollen belly. I heard, she said quietly. The servants gossip. They say something is coming, that the ice on the lake is cracking without warming, that shadows move in the deep forest. We'll be ready. She turned to face him, and he saw tears on her cheeks. What if we can't stop it? What if completing the pattern dooms us all? Cassian crossed to her, cupping her face in his hands. Then we fight anyway. We protect our children anyway. We love each other anyway. His voice dropped, fierce and absolute. I promised you 5 winters and 5 suns, Alara. I've kept that promise. Now I promise you this. Whatever comes for us, it will have to go through me first. I can't lose you. You won't. He kissed her forehead. I'm not going anywhere. Not when I finally have everything I've ever wanted. The The fifth son arrived on the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. Labor hit Alara suddenly and violently. One moment she was fine, the next she was doubled over in pain. Cassian carried her to their chambers, calling for Ira. The healer arrived within minutes, her face tight with worry. "It's too fast," Ira said. "The baby is coming too fast." Outside, the temperature plummeted. Ice formed on the windows in intricate, impossible patterns. The wind began to howl. Through the window, Cassian saw the lake in the distance. The ice was cracking, lines spreading across the frozen surface like black lightning. "Something's waking up," he said. Ira didn't look away from Alara. "Then it will have to wait. This child needs to be born first." The labor was brutal. Alara screamed herself hoarse, her body pushed beyond its limits. Blood soaked the sheets. Ira worked frantically, using every skill she possessed. And through it all, Cassian held Alara's hand and refused to let go. "Stay with me," he commanded, his voice raw. "Don't you dare leave me now. We're so close. Just hold on." "I'm trying," Alara gasped. "It hurts." I know it hurts. But you're the strongest person I've ever known. You survived rejection, rebuilt yourself, gave me 4 perfect sons. You can do this. One more son, and then we're done." She gripped his hand hard enough to break bones and pushed. The baby came all at once, sliding into Era's waiting hands with a wail that shook the windows. "A son," Era breathed. "The 5th son." She placed him in Alara's arms, and the room went completely still. The baby was perfect. Dark hair, strong lungs, eyes that were already turning silver. But there was something else. Something that made even Era step back. Power radiated from the infant. Not the normal strength of an alpha heir, but something ancient and vast and almost frightening. "His name," Alara whispered, looking down at her 5th son. "We'll name him Theron. It means hunter." "Theron," Cassian repeated, touching the baby's tiny hand. The infant gripped his finger, and Cassian felt a jolt of recognition. "Welcome, son. We've been waiting for you." The moment Cassian spoke those words, the bond between them flared to life. And outside, the ice on the lake shattered completely. The sound was like thunder, rolling across the valley. Every wolf in the palace froze, heads turning toward the window. Cassian handed Theron back to Alara and moved to look out. Where the lake had been, a massive hole gaped in the ice. And from that hole, something was rising. Not water, darkness. It poured out like smoke, spreading across the snow, creeping toward the palace with terrible purpose. "Alara," Cassian said, his voice deadly calm. "Take the children to the protected chamber. Now." "What is that?" "What? The price." He turned to face her, and his eyes were blazing. Fate coming to collect. Alara struggled to her feet despite Ira's protests. "I'm not leaving you. You have to. Our sons need you. If something happens to me, nothing is happening to you." She met his eyes with fierce determination. "We face this together. We promised." Cassian wanted to argue, wanted to send her away, to keep her safe, but he knew that stubborn look. "Fine, but the boys go to safety." Kaya, his sister, appeared in the doorway, already in fighting leathers. "I heard. The darkness? Take all 5 princes to the sealed chamber. Don't come out until either Alara or I come for you personally. Trust no one else." Kaya nodded, her face grim. She began gathering the babies, handling them with practiced efficiency. Aldrich, old enough to understand something was wrong, clung to his mother. "Mama," Alara kissed his forehead. "I'll be right back, my love. Be brave for me. Protect your brothers." The 4-year-old nodded solemnly. "I will." Once the children were secured, Cassian and Alara stood together at the window, watching the darkness approach. It moved like a living thing, swallowing everything in its path. Where it touched, plants withered, stone cracked. The air itself seemed to freeze. "What does it want?" Alara asked. "Power, payment, revenge for being sealed away." Cassian's hand found hers. "The prophecy said 5 sons would light a path through darkness. I think we're about to find out what that means." The darkness reached the palace walls. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a voice spoke, old and vast and terrible, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. "Cassian Rook, Alpha King, you have taken what was sealed. 5 sons from a cursed womb. 5 lights born from impossible promise. What do you want?" Cassian demanded, his voice carrying despite being just human. "The debt must be paid. The balance restored. You have 5 sons. I require one. Alara's hand tightened on Cassian's. No, the youngest. The fifth. The one born on the solstice. He is marked. He is mine. He's ours, Cassian snarled. Theron is our son. You don't get to claim him. The pattern is complete. The price is due. The darkness began to seep through the walls, reaching for their chambers, reaching for where Theron lay in his cradle. Cassian's power flared, creating a barrier of light. You want him? You'll have to go through me. I am ancient. I am endless. You are mortal and fading. You cannot stop me. Watch me. Cassian's transformation was instantaneous. His wolf burst forward, massive and black and burning with alpha power. He placed himself between the darkness and his family, teeth bared, a growl rumbling through the room. Alara's wolf rose to join him, silver and fierce despite her exhausted body. And something impossible happened. The 4 older sons, safe in their protected chamber with Kaya, began to glow. Faint at first, then brighter, their infant bodies radiating light like small stars. In his cradle, Theron blazed brightest of all. The light from the 5 suns streamed out, connecting to their parents, forming a web of power that pushed back against the darkness. The ancient voice sounded surprised for the first time. Impossible. They are infants. They should not be able. They're our sons, Alara said, her voice ringing with absolute certainty. Born from impossible love, defying every curse, proving every doubt wrong. They are not yours. They never were. They are ours. And we will burn this entire palace to ash before we let you take them. The light grew brighter, the web stronger. Cassian's voice joined hers. You wanted 5 sons to light a path? Fine. But not for you. For us. For their future. For a world where curses don't get to decide who lives and who dies. Together, mates and parents, they pushed. The light from their sons flowed through them, amplified by their bond, channeled by their love and rage and absolute refusal to surrender. The darkness screamed. It tried to hold on, tried to seep deeper, tried to claim what it thought it was owed. But it couldn't withstand the combined power of 5 alpha sons, 2 fated mates, and a love strong enough to defy prophecy itself. Slowly, inch by inch, the darkness retreated. It pulled back from the palace, back across the grounds, back toward the shattered lake. As dawn broke over Moonspire, the last of the darkness sank beneath the ice. The lake froze solid again, smooth and undisturbed, as if nothing had ever broken through. Cassian and Alara collapsed together, shifting back to human form, exhausted beyond measure. Kaya burst through the door moments later, all 5 princes in her arms and trailing behind her. Are they safe? Alara gasped, reaching for her children. Everyone is safe. Aldrich crawled into his mother's lap. Kieran and Finian pressed against their father. Lysander curled up between them, and Theron, still glowing faintly, was passed between his parents until his light finally dimmed. They sat on the floor of their chambers, the entire family piled together, as morning light flooded through the windows. It's over, Cassian said quietly. 5 winters, 5 suns, and we survived. Alara kissed Theron's forehead, then reached across to kiss her mate. We did more than survive. We won. Outside, the palace began to stir. Servants ventured out cautiously. Guards reported no damage, no casualties, just a strange night of unnatural cold. Only those closest to the royal family would ever know how close they had come to losing everything. But the prophecy was complete. The curse was broken, and 5 princes slept soundly in their parents' arms, unaware that they had just saved the kingdom before they could even walk. Months later, with spring thawing the last of winter's ice, Cassian stood on his balcony watching his sons play in the courtyard below. Alara joined him, sliding under his arm with the ease of long practice. Any regrets? She asked. About what? That night in the snow. When you promised me 5 suns and 5 winters, it nearly killed us all. Cassian pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. No regrets. Not one. You gave me everything I could ever want. A mate who challenges me. 5 sons who will change the world. A family worth fighting for. Even though it was insane? Especially because it was insane. He turned her to face him. You were never barren, Alara. You were just waiting for the right wolf to see your worth. And I will spend every day for the rest of my life grateful that I was that wolf. She smiled up at him, the expression bright and full of joy. I love you, Cassian Rook. I love you too, Alara Rook. My queen, my mate, my miracle. They kissed as their sons' laughter rang through the courtyard. 5 young princes playing in the spring sunshine, oblivious to the prophecy they had fulfilled. the curse they had broken, the love that had made their existence possible. 5 winters, 5 suns, and a love story that would be told for generations. If you loved Elara and Cassian's story, please like and subscribe to Ariel Romance Library. Let me know in the comments which of the 5 princes you'd most like to hear about when they grow up. Would you trust an alpha king who promised you 5 suns and 5 winters? Or would you think he was crazy? Share your thoughts below, and I'll see you in the next story.